Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be talking about the top 10 Commander Precons, and this is going to be the Avatar Edition. Yes, I'll explain Avatar Edition in a minute. There is no Commander Precons with Avatar, but I do think it's important to note these are all subjective, and my opinions, some are based off of strength, while others are based off of fun. Generally, most of them are going to be needing upgrades. Precon since 2022 has been pretty decent, but some of them will also need more upgrades than others if you're competing against anything except for other precons. Now, I do try and keep this list up to date with every new set coming out, and kind of start excluding precons that are harder to find or that are going to cost your firstborn if you do happen to find them. Now, as I said, this is Avatar Edition. While there are no Avatar precons, there are cards that supported heavily some of the other existing precons. Like, there's some precons in here that have some absolutely huge synergies with Avatar cards. So I'm making sure that I want to showcase those precons here, and because of the fact that, there's a huge amount of new people who are going to be starting out with Magic and potentially starting out with Commander as well. Now, of note is this here is not a Commander Precon. It's a Commander's bundle. It's basically like a new version of the gift bundle. It comes with a collector booster, some other boosters, and some staple Commander cards, except for the art is Avatar versions. So, also, precons are just that. They are pre-constructed decks by wizards. They are convenient, however, they may not be the best way for you to start a deck out. Keep in mind that some suggestions on the list may be harder to find and stuff like that. If they are harder to find, or you're going to be paying more than MSRP, well above MSRP, please don't pay that. Either get a different one on the list, or just wait until it comes down, or just build the deck yourself. All right. And also the bracket system here I want to note here, because most of these are going to be around bracket 2. There's some that kind of etch into bracket 3 as well. The wins for them are going to be more incremental, just slowly building up your board and damage on opponents. However, I think every precon has the opportunity to be built up to bracket 3, and of note, some can even be built up to bracket 4. More changes are obviously needed to take it up to bracket 4, but they are easily possible with some of these. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe. Only like 30% of people who watch the channel are subscribed. We cover, the absolutely news. As soon as it comes out, I'm up at 3 a.m. making videos for you guys. The best cards for you to get, as well as, these kind of precon decks. We're trying to hit 25,000 by the end of the year, and we're actually falling short at the moment. And I'm thinking of doing a giveaway when we hit 25,000. So if you want me to get, to be able to do that giveaway, make sure you subscribe as well. And if you are picking up singles, head on over to Mana Pool as well there. So let's get out with the quick draw one. So this is a spell slinger deck. You're going to be playing lots of instants and sorceries and getting benefits on your creatures for doing that. And it comes with a huge amount of those like spell slinger staples, right? You've got all the stuff that kind of works well with you casting a whole bunch of instants and sorceries. The aim is to cast at least 2 of them per turn, but there's more things that just synergize with you casting a whole bunch. And it can be upgraded to be very, very easily powerful, especially the Commander. Now with Avatar, there was a huge amount of lessons that were released that were all instants and sorceries that synergize really well with this game plan of playing a whole bunch of cards, right? It's because they are, a whole bunch of instants and sorceries you can play, and they'll go really, really well with this. In fact, you could take this deck and build it into an Iroh Grand Lotus deck if you wanted as well. A couple of the cards, we've got Stella Lee here. She is the face commander that is the reason why this can go so easily up to like a bracket 4 deck. If you have a way to untap her, you can get a huge amount of instants and sorceries very, very easily off. And then you've got other cards like Thunderclap Drake, stuff that synergize well with your instants and sorceries, buff them up, allow you to copy them, etc., etc. All right, into the next one here, we've got the Sultai Arisen deck. So this one here is a mill-based deck. You're aiming to mill your cards, take them straight from the library, put them straight into the graveyard. Just grab a chunk and chuck it in there. There's a side of reanimation here. There's stuff for leaving the graveyard triggers. There's a lot of like zombie tokens as well. And there is a lot of really great stuff to mill your stuff, which, in these decks, you don't really find as many, especially in precons. I do think Tavall is the better commander here, and there's just some insanely great reprints throughout the whole thing. Both Avatar and Spider-Man also brought some new mill cards as well that could work really well here, but realistically, I do think this deck is solid out of the box, and there's a whole bunch of other ways to upgrade it. I don't think they had really great mill cards, but there is some decent ones in there. So Taval here is attack. When Taval attacks, you're going to mill 3 cards, and then you can return a land card from there onto the battlefield tapped. There's also a side theme of like landfall as well. Just keep that in mind too. And then whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you're going to create a black zombie druid creature token. And then there's other stuff, as I said, like about the landfall stuff, the Steward of the Harvest here. Take advantage of those cards in your graveyard, and then you're going to buff up all your creatures with those abilities that you exile there. We got the Revival Trance one. This is a newcomer to the list, but after playing with it more and upgrading it and seeing other people playing with it, I do think that it could potentially be very, very strong very easily. I do think the secondary commander here is stronger, which I'll show you in a minute, but both commanders are pretty decent. So this deck is based around, again, like milling yourself, but not just milling yourself. You just want creatures in your graveyard. Milling them, discarding them, sacrificing them, and then you're going to reanimate them with a variety of different ways to do that, potentially making a huge board out of nowhere. That's the great thing I love about this deck, is that it really catches people off guard very, very easily. It gets out of hand incredibly quickly. So talking about this secondary commander here, this is Celis Rune Knight. I do think that, and I actually have, seen that she was originally going to be like the face commander of it, but they switched it to Terra because in the game, she's more the face commander. But Celeste lets you discard stuff, then draw stuff, and then whenever things leave your graveyard, you're going to be able to put +1/+1 counters onto her whenever, creatures leave your graveyard. And then Terra lets you mill and then also reanimate when she deals combat damage to someone, as long as you pay that 2 mana. Both are great, commanders as well. And you can see kind of what the deck is aiming to do between these two. We've got the Counterintelligence deck, and I think this one is really, really intelligent. Honestly, it's really interesting. It utilizes mostly charge counters, but there is a side theme of like +1/+1 counters, but it's also all of it through artifacts. So you've got artifacts in here, you've got a whole bunch of proliferation, you've got a bunch of interesting proliferation, like there's one that punishes people for committing crimes within game, not crimes outside of game. That's, that's the police's job, but in game, you get to punish them by buffing up all of your stuff. There's just, all the main themes and side themes are all just very, very synergistic. And you can also play as a legendary spaceship. In fact, one of the 2 commanders on the front here, the spaceship up here, the Inspirit, you can play as. And every set has a whole bunch of counter support too, like whether it's +1/+1 counters or other counters. And then Spider-Man also brought a whole bunch of modified creature buffs. So, if you've got like Spider out, then you get to do, more stuff with modified creatures and everything. Like there's a whole bunch of really nice stuff that you can buff up your creatures with here. All right, so showing off the 2 here, this is the one, Patrolling Peacemaker, that I was talking about. When an opponent commits a crime, you get to punish them by proliferating all of your stuff. You get to, increase the amount of counters on it. That a crime in game is whenever they basically target an opponent, anything an opponent controls, or cards in their graveyard. So that means that, if they target you, you're their opponent. Boom. And then Kilo Apogee Mind here goes really, really easily infinite as well, if you've got a way to untap and then tap him. And then you get infinite proliferation, which is really great. I love it. Into the next one here, we've got the Peace Offering deck. So this is a group hug deck where you want to be basically friendly with everyone. You're giving them all stuff, mostly card draw, but you can give them other stuff as well. It's got cute creatures, but there's a huge of different ways to upgrade it. I've upgraded mine into alternate win cons. So I'm slowly building up these alternate win cons, drawing cards or discard, drawing through my whole deck, or, approach from the second sun, cast this card 2 times, that kind of stuff. I do think this is definitely a more difficult deck because you need to be able to politic, know who to give cards to, where it's not going to screw you over. And if you are new to the game, very, very new, I wouldn't suggest just this. Once you've kind of played a little bit Commander and stuff like that, so you have a little bit of that threat assessment, it's definitely worthwhile. And these are the 2 of the cards you'll see there. Miss Bumbleflower here is the commander. She's going to allow you to give a person a card every time you cast a spell, and then you also put a +1/+1 counter on one of your creatures and it gains flying. That means Miss Bumbleflower can get really huge, right? If you're casting things, you slowly put the +1 counters onto her to the point that she becomes a 20-25, and then you just fly over top of people and just hit them with a flying bunny. And then also, if it's the second time that you've done this, then you get to draw 2 cards. And then, as I said about the alternate win cons, 20-Toed Toad was one. When 20-Toed Toad attacks, you win the game if you have 20 or more counters on it, or you have 20 or more cards in hand. Both really great cards and really fun. We got the Eternal Might Precon here. This is a zombie tribal deck. So it's got a whole bunch of zombie tribals. You're going to play with a whole bunch of zombies and stuff, but it's mostly focused around just as much the card draw and discard. So you're going to be drawing cards, you're going to be discarding cards, you're going to be creating zombies, you're going to play a whole bunch of zombies, as well as there being a huge amount of reprinted and new zombies that are really great in here. It comes with a really great land base as well, which is perfect. I love great land bases, and for the last few years nearly every Precons has a really decent land base too. There's also a potential CEDH, as in bracket 4, bracket 5 commander within here, as like this secondary commander too. And overall, you know, 2025, whether it's Spider-Man, Avatar, or other sets, all had a whole bunch of discard stuff within them, so it's easy to find some new cards to synergize well with here. So the face commander here is Temet Nakatum's Will. Whenever you attack, you draw a card, then discard, and then all of your zombies are buffed up for every card you've drawn. And then Renewed Solidarity is an interesting card here, because then it's every time at the beginning of your end step, for each token you've created, whether that's zombies, treasures, clues, etc., that enter this turn, you're going to create a token that's a copy of it. I love it. I love it. It's a really great card. And then, as I said about the secondary commander that could be a CEDH commander, Hashaton Scarab's Fist. This is whenever you discard a card, a creature card, you're going to pay 2 and a blue to create a tapped token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 zombie. Very, very strong. All right, into Limit Break. So this one here is an equipment-based deck from Final Fantasy. It goes really hard. It is great for beginners. It is amazingly easy to play and straightforward. It is basically, you want big creatures. You swing with big creatures. You hit people in face with big creatures. There's a whole bunch of equipments in it, but there's other ways to buff up your creatures as well. Cloud X Soldier, as you can see, this like secondary thing of power 7 that's there. So he has, whenever he attacks, you can draw a card for each equipped creature. And then if Cloud has a power 7 or greater, you're going to create 2 treasures. And then you've got like stuff like Wrecking Ball Arm as equipments in there that just turns whoever it's attached to into a 7/7. And it also can't be blocked, which is fantastic. We've got the Counter Blitz one here. So another one from Final Fantasy. There's 3 Final Fantasy ones on here. Overall, I think all the Final Fantasy ones are pretty great. So this one here is a counters-based deck. This time around, we are doing those +1/+1 counters. But there is side themes that care about stun counters, saga creatures, all that kind of stuff. There is a fantastic amount of really great cards that are in here. All of the main themes, all of the side themes, all just work insanely well together. And this, again, every set comes out with more +1/+1 counters, but Avatar specifically came out with the Earthbend mechanic that works really well here, because you can Earthbend stuff, and then those are creatures as well that you can swing in, get extra benefits from, etc. So the 2 commanders here, both are really great. I really love playing with Titus Unis Guardian here. You get to move a counter at the beginning of combat from one target creature you control to another one, and then whenever one or more creatures you control with a counter on them deal combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card and then proliferate. Now, you can only do that once per turn, even if you hit 3 people, only once per turn, but you get to draw cards to proliferate. Proliferation is very, very strong. And then the other commander here, Yuna's Grand Summoner. If you upgrade this with a way to untap her, which is just really easy, like Freed from the Real just goes infinite with her. You tap her, you add a blue mana. Freed from the Real has blue untap. You just do this infinite, and then the next creature you cast comes in with an infinite amount of +1/+1 counters on it. And then whenever another permanent you control is put into the graveyard from a battlefield, if it had counters on it, you get to put counters onto a creature. So if it had, like, you know, saga counters, then all of those saga counters turn into +1/+1 counters on one of your creatures. Fantastic. No notes. It's absolutely great. I love it. We got the World Shaper one. Now, this is the one that really benefits from Avatar. Avatar goes absolutely bonkers here. So the whole point of this deck is to sacrifice your lands to get a bunch of value from it, right? Creatures that grow bigger, more card draw, etc. The Desert Bloom Precon is very similar to this. I've actually dropped the Desert Bloom Precon from my suggestions at the moment, but it's, you know, very similar to this. It's just a Naya deck instead of this, but this one here focuses more around the actual sacrificing parts. There's a whole bunch of insects in here. There's a land focus as well, a whole bunch of landfall stuff, another legendary spaceship. But the reason that it works really well is the Earthbend mechanic. The Earthbend mechanic has, whenever this creature was to die or get exiled, it goes to the graveyard and then comes back onto the battlefield. Therefore, you can sacrifice your earth-bent stuff to just bring it back. The whole point of this deck was once you sacrifice it, it's in your graveyard, and then you got to bring it back from there somehow. Why not just, skip that whole bringing it back, just bring it back instantly. It's fantastic. I'll show you a couple examples of that in a second. Both of the commanders here, Hearthal the World Seat and Srazerael Genesis Shepherd, both do great stuff with this mechanic. So Hearthal wants you to be, allows you to sacrifice to get card draw, play an additional land, and then whenever you sacrifice something, deal damage. Oh, not deal damage, sorry. Each opponent loses life. Srazerael lets you play those cards back from your graveyard and then get benefits whenever you sacrifice a non-token permanent, aka, lands. Now, what I said about the Earthbend stuff, you want the Earthbend stuff that is repeatable. So Beifong's Bounty Hunters is great here if you're going to be Earthbending a land and then killing it, because it just means that once that land dies, you get to Earthbend another land and just slowly bounce your Earthbent lands across. Toph Hard-Headed Teacher here allows you to, whenever you cast a spell, Earthbend something. So boom, you get to bring that up, make it into a creature. If it's a lesson, just ignore the lesson part, even almost ignore that top part. It's useful. You could discard a land and then play it from the graveyard anyway and get something back. Great. But the part that's really strong here is whenever you cast a spell, Earthbend 1, because now when we sacrifice that, it's coming back. That's fantastic. The last one here is the Animated Army deck. This is a new one on the list as well that I've brought up because I've just, after looking at it more and after looking at the fantastic amount of artifacts and enchantments that are mana value 4 or greater that work really well with this deck, I think this deck is just going to get better and better. There's a lot of ways to be able to ramp up to that. It allows you to turn all these mana value 4 or greater artifacts and enchantments into creatures on your turn that are indestructible, that are hasted. They get to do a huge amount of stuff. It is incredibly snowbally, this deck, especially once you start getting out a huge amount of these creatures that you're swinging in with. It is just fantastic. I love it. It's really good. There's just so many different ways to upgrade it as well. Do you want to bring in more artifacts? Do you want to bring in more enchantments? Do you want to bring in vehicles? I suggest vehicles. Vehicles are fantastic. And, this is Bello here. He's the one who makes it so that they all become 4/4 elemental creature tokens with indestructible haste. Whenever they deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's just insanely great. And then next, we've got the Rolling Hamsphere over here that you, as like an example of a card within that deck, when it becomes a 4/4, right? It's a 4/4 anyway. So that's realistically doesn't matter, but it also gets buffed up by the hamsters that you have, and whenever you attack, you get to create hamsters. It is just, this Rolling Hamsphere, it's going to create a huge amount of little hamsters that you can use as blockers, but then also it's going to get absolutely massive, right? The first time it attacks, it is going to become a 7/7. That's the first time. Second time, 10/10. Yeah, it's just fantastic. All right, now another option here, instead of these 10 options, are to build your own Precon. Now, this is a little ad for my thing. If you are looking to get a Precon built, we do offer that. You can head on over to our Ko-fi. I will build a deck for you for a very low price. It is only $10 US. Yeah, and we also run discounts on it every once in a while. Some honorable mentions though, here we've got the theft decks. Theft decks are fantastic because they let you punch up. You get to steal other people's expensive upgraded decks and be able to play them. That's fantastic. Only steal them for while you're in the game because again, that's a crime and that's going to be the cops instead of, the patrolling peacemaker, but still. We've got these ones here. These are more expensive decks, but they are really, really good in my opinion. These 3 from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, all fantastic decks. The Merfolk, the vampires, and then the dinosaurs, all really great. The Party Time deck from Baldur's Gate, I really, really like that one. And then we've got these 2 here. The Revenant Recon has the most insane reprints within it. They have reprinted those a little bit since, like some of them, but still, it still has all of those staples that you want. And then the Blame Gain one is just an incredibly, incredibly fun deck. And then any of the ones from the Lord of the Rings, except for the Elf one, and then any of the ones from the Warhammer 40k are all really great decks as well. I will also note these 2 decks because I think that I love these decks. These are some of my favorite decks. but they do need more fine tuning than others, in my opinion. Like, you need more ways with the Miracle Worker one to make sure that the stuff on top is the stuff that you want. And then these Science and Spellcraft really needs a whole bunch of the creatures cut to just really go down into more of a spell slinger deck. My wife has this one. I hate it because it's so strong. I really shouldn't have built it that strong for her. These are my favorite ones. You will notice that most of them are on this list, except for the Desert Bloom one. That's going to be one of my favorite precons of all time. It's not on the list because it's just kind of dropped a little bit below. It's like 11th or 12th now, but it's still a fantastic precon and I really love it. Being able to like sacrifice stuff, but the fact that it's locked to deserts just makes it a little bit more painful. But either way, these decks are all ones that, you know, my favorite ones. If you guys are looking for my favorite suggestions, these are them. All right, now I want to hear from you guys, you know, what precons you think should have been on this list if I missed any, as well as don't forget to subscribe, please. Try to hit that 25,000 for a big giveaway. I don't even know what we're going to give away. I'm going to talk to some sponsors to get some big stuff to hopefully give away. Let me know. Have a great day and goodbye.